Hello, my name is Abigail Sim, and today we are going to have a very interesting conversation with three groups of people. So I'll let them introduce themselves and what they do. So I'll start with my immediate left.
Hi, good day everyone. I am Nondumiso Dumakude, representing the CBD Women's Caucus. I'm originally from South Africa. I work for Parliament, but I also work in the NGO space as a board member of the Women's Leadership and Training Program in South Africa.
My name is Irene Natukunda from Uganda, representing on behalf of the Africa region of the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, which I also happen to co-coordinate. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Mulenkei from Kenya with Indigenous Information Network, but I'm the regional coordinator for Indigenous peoples and local communities in this Africa.
My name is Delma Ndhlovu, Indigenous people from Zimbabwe, Farmers Forum. I think that's enough for a farmer.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us today. So I'd like to kick off the conversation, and I'll start with Ndhlovu because he's the only gentleman in this in this forum for now. So Ndhlovu, what is the role of Indigenous people and local communities in biodiversity conservation, and more specifically, small-scale farmers?
Right. Every building or every structure should have a strong foundation. And the basis of strength is measured by the strength of its foundation. The foundation of all biodiversity or all keeping of resources is the local communities, the farmers, and they are the backbone because they are the people that ensure that these resources are kept and nurtured.
Okay, so what about the youth? What is the role of youth in biodiversity conservation?
I'd like to say, considering that right now in Africa, youth make more than 73% of the population, the general population. This might be seen as a problem sometimes, but I see it as an opportunity to utilize young people's energy. Young people are innovators, they are digital mobilizers, and I'm so sure when they bring their voices to advocate for biodiversity conservation or trying to talk about the issues that are happening on a grassroots level, that is the energy and the strength they hold, and they're also actionists, but they can also take part in resources mobilization to ensure that they support their own activities that they are implementing on ground to contribute to biodiversity conservation. So it is the voices they bring, and also putting back their energy into innovations for biodiversity conservation and actions on ground. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much. So as we move to the role of women in biodiversity conservation, there has been a lot of talk, a lot of conversations around gender equity, gender equality, and all that. As you answer what role women play in biodiversity conservation, how does the issue of gender equity also play in?
Okay, thank you so much, Abigail, for the question. The role of women in nature conservation, actually, women are the stewards of the environment or of nature. We are the first people to notice changes in our environment, as we are the people that interact with the land on a daily basis, as we're expected to bring our families the resources, the food, the water, everything that is needed to make a comfortable home. Now, looking at the gender equity part, women have the biggest burden when it comes to taking care of their families, in so much so that when we are being represented globally, we get affected because of the tasks and responsibilities that we have back home. Sometimes we might want to voice out our voices, to say, I need this, I need that. But because I have so many responsibilities or many things to take care of at home, I'm being restricted. So when we looking or maybe designing policies, we should also consider what women face on a daily basis. What are their responsibilities and what are the limitations that limit them from voicing out their views?
Okay. So, Lucy, Ndhlovu mentioned that the key roles that Indigenous peoples play in biodiversity conservation. But from the cap that you wear, how does the knowledge that this special group of people have translate into policies in our region, in our specific countries, and also just for the entire continent?
Thank you very much for that question. And I think it relates also to what the women have said and also the youth, because also for Indigenous peoples and local communities, we have women and we have youth that we work together with. And as you mentioned, Indigenous people are actually custodians of their cultures, of their traditions, of their lands, and also with their resources. They are the same people who care a lot for the resources. But we come also from a region whereby most of the people in the region believe we are all Africans. So it brings also another bigger challenge. Where do we belong? But I think one of the most key thing is that as the International Indigenous Forum on Biodiversity, which I'm representing the region of Africa, we have been able to work very carefully and very keenly with the parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity, where traditional knowledge and biodiversity is well discussed. And it started some years back from as early as 1992 when the convention was written. Why did we decide to also be able to work very closely with the governments so that they can understand us and we can understand them, and they can know what we actually have and why we have the knowledge we have and why we have to safeguard it and bring it to the table, because we've lost a lot. But part of biodiversity is the knowledge that the communities have. And if the rights of the Indigenous people are not recognized, that they have this knowledge, it doesn't go anywhere. And even the policies won't be implemented anyway. So if they contribute, whatever they contribute is very important to ensure that whatever they contribute can be put as policy, and they will be also included in the implementation. That's the only way we can succeed, even though we still have a long way to go.
True. So from this forum, the conversation that I've had is that there's a challenge in terms of these special groups of people, the Indigenous peoples, the youth and the women, for their voices to be heard even within the national spectrum. So, from your experiences, how then do you ensure that the voices from the people that you come from, or rather the people that you represent, are heard at the national level, and those conversations are also included in the governance within your country?
That's the biggest challenge that we have. And then she has alluded to the problem to say, we are all indigenous people to Africa. Yeah. So because we are all indigenous, where will we be? If we can't go to Europe and become indigenous there, we're indigenous in Africa here. So if all of us are indigenous, then what makes who put this distinction between us that some are more equal than others? Because those that feel they are more equal than others, maybe they are sitting in government, or maybe they are sitting there or sitting there. But when they come, when they have problems, when things are not moving well, they come back to us at home to come and correct those issues that are worrying them in those offices. So I wonder who put this, and when we find them coming to us to say, things are not moving, parents, why are you angry? When they come back to us, then we feel we are even greater than them. But when they're in their offices, they feel greater than us. So they leave us out. They think they know. I don't know where they get this information or this thinking that they know more than us. So we are crying that if they would just humble themselves and respect us as owners and holders of knowledge, then we would work and bring our issues on the table together, and they would understand us, and they would share these problems and maybe solve them quicker.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Lucy.
So maybe I could add, actually the thing is the way he has said it is very interesting, because science is looking for those indigenous and local communities, and even those local communities who embroider traditional knowledge, simply because if you talk about climate change, for example, they are the ones who know how they used to handle it, and they have early warning systems among them, and even now they still have early warning systems. They can tell the rains or something will happen with the look of the birds, and the scientists want to know what is this knowledge that these people are. So it's also challenging the governments to be able to recognize this knowledge these young people are, or these older people have, so that we can be able to bring everything back on the table and stand as the people who can give information that can be our own science, our own traditional science, and we can write it and we can be able to share that to be able to make even the policy makers, and some of them are from that ground. But as he says, when they arrive to those big offices, they forget where they came from. But indigenous people will not forget.
But it's also always the question of we no longer have that knowledge that we can refer to as indigenous knowledge, because it has been eroded with the modernization of how we do our things. So there's always that argument that do we really have indigenous people or do we have local people? So there's, yes.
That's what they say, but the knowledge is still there.
Okay.
But the knowledge holders are there also. And that is why sometimes they don't even want to give away that knowledge, because they don't know where it's been taken. Remember, researchers have come to this region of our great region called Africa. They've taken most of the most of the knowledge, they've gone to use it and have not acknowledged. They have not, and they've taken it without any pre-informed consent from our people. And that's why the convention came up even with the different protocols to be able to help the communities to have a voice. If the Nagoya Protocol can be implemented the way it's written, and be able to have the communities also start doing their own bicultural protocols and be able to learn, everyone else would know that it's there. Remember, we are losing languages. Where are the languages going to come from? So whom are we going to be in future? That's the question.
Yeah, true. I get you on the languages, because we also have similar problems in Kenya, where we have kids who grow up without knowing their local language.
But now we are trying as much as possible, those of us who are working in the field, to make them learn and to speak the language. I like the way when she brings up those sayings from Africa, from her own community. It already shows her that as a youth, she's able to actually share this, and many other youth are also, admiring her and would like to pick up from there. That's where the language starts. And that's where, like in South Africa, they do everything which is really tradition of what they used to do many years back. And the kids are also mixing that together with the modern life. But that tells a story. It tells a story that even these young people are slowly wanting to go back and learn from where they came from.
Okay. So I want to steer the conversation to women. As the women, as part of this Convention on Biological Diversity Women Caucus, how do you ensure that the role of women is known? Because you've told us what the role of women is, but then how do you ensure that reaches even the women in rural areas and in rural villages, that they have a role to play when it comes to biodiversity conservation?
Okay, looking at the role of women and ensuring that they are being represented and that everyone is included in the process, even those deep rural areas. The CBD Women's Caucus has got different strategies. First of all, we have capacity building, where we teach our women in our groups to say, if you go to a community, this is how you go about introducing the biodiversity story. We have different training sessions. Also, we use, beyond training, we use different formats of communicating information. Like you can have your written information. Somebody might not understand that, but the CBD women's role, we understand as CBD women that we have been trained. If I go to my community, this is my local context. This is how my community will understand what I'm saying to them. And we also always have that idea to say, leave no one behind. Use the bottom-up approach. Get the voices from the individual communities as much as possible. As the CBD Women's Caucus, we are represented in so many countries. And in each country, each women's caucus member has to engage with the community. They have to understand what each woman or every corner of their country, what is it that they're doing. And if something is needed, they know I have to contact these women and this is what they can bring to the table.
Okay. So then as part of the how do you ensure that this message is simplified? Because when you talk about Convention on Biological Diversity, the issue of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework comes up. How then do you explain all those 23 targets in a way that these women can understand?
Okay, like I said, we localize the information. We use the languages of our communities because each and every CPT Women's Caucus member understands their community. They understand the level of understanding that each member has got. So we translate that information, localize it to our context, ensure that every woman we speak to understands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
just to add to her answer, the greatest learning is living it out.
Yeah.
You see, when we say we old people, whether women or what, we learn by seeing, not by hearing. So if we go to if we are going to a workshop, yes, we'll sit there and listen. But when we see it done, as it comes in and is implemented, we catch up and the fire goes on. So the idea that we are using as ourselves is take one that is to ensure that women to women, there is a learning course that they share together. They go to this home, they share, they make these groupings together, they contribute their funds, maybe clubs and so forth, and they're sharing, they're learning and they're building their knowledge. And that is helpful. I think that builds more. It has more attraction because it is from them by them.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Irene, you started the conversation by noting that youth form the largest piece of our population here in Africa. You said 73%, right? So how then do you reach these people? In what ways are you able to communicate the effects of biodiversity laws, how they go about conservation in their own spaces, workplaces, within their own families and communities?
Thank you so much. So I'll first give just an example. For example, the Global Youth Biodiversity Network. Right now, the Africa region has over 35 active chapters. That means that is 35 countries and many others that are just being initiated. So how we make sure this language reaches each chapter has individual and organization membership. We do understand there are so many youth-led organizations, small initiatives, projects, grassroots mostly, because in modern some of the cities, the young people in the cities, first of all, do not have land where they can take any action. Secondly, they do not have actually they are too modern. They have spent most of their time reading and studying in class theory, but actually you get to understand the youth who live deep down in the communities, in the villages, are the people who have the capacity to implement actions that can contribute to biodiversity. So we mobilize, first of all, virtually. We have all those registration platforms. GYBN Africa right now has more than almost 1 million of youth across Africa, and these are from each chapter has like a membership of more than 500 individuals and about more than 10 youth-led organizations registered. That is, if I'm to do an estimate, but like from Uganda, we have around 30 youth-led organizations and a network of around 700 youth registered. So that's how we are able to mobilize youth at a national level, but we also have the membership at regional level and at global level. So in that kind of way, we mobilize. We do not just mobilize, we also capacitate.
Okay.
For example, the KMGBF was released. Young people do not know what it means. They don't know where it happened. Some are even finding this language too technical. What do you mean 30 by 30? What do you mean nature-based solutions? They need to understand. So we break it down to a national level. First of all, we encourage chapters to get in touch with their focal point. Each country that is part to the convention has a national focal point. We encourage them to forge conversations with them. Recently, we did a survey of all the chapters that we have, and 12 countries have only been engaged in the revision and update of their NB subs, for example, but those are 35 countries, meaning the others haven't gotten in touch. And also those who are in touch, very few were meaningfully engaged. Meaningfully, I mean being invited throughout the entire process and being given a platform to contribute. For example, Uganda, we have one of the targets in the new national biodiversity strategy that talks about youth inclusion. This was because they brought us on board and they engaged us through the entire process. So what I'm trying to show is we not only mobilize at a global, regional level into deep down in our countries, we're actually doing more of the work, and we're trying to bring the local youth actually on the mostly capacitated, because we know they have the capacity to more contribute to biodiversity conservation, while others have the capacity to do the advocacy, utilizing the social platforms, the technologies we use. We do online virtual trainings because we cannot be able to meet, but we also have the African Youth Biodiversity Summit, which happens every after 2 years. And this brings together youth from all around Africa to come and discuss the issues they are facing, and also devise solutions. And there are usually outcomes like declarations that we later share at a national level and global level to be integrated into policy frameworks. So,
okay. So you've mentioned about social media platform, because I wanted to ask you about the issue. How do you take advantage of digitization, social media, and AI in ensuring that your message gets out to the right people? Because you're targeting to bring more youth on board.
Yeah.
And also there's that fear from youth that such conversation, boardroom conversations, when it comes to issues to do with conservation, there are always a specific group of people, the people who are deemed to be older, who engage in such conversations. Then how do you also ensure that fear is not an issue when you're having conversations with these groups of people?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, capacity building is an information sharing. GYBN has a book called The CBD in a Nutshell. It talks about almost everything about biodiversity, our journey, our engagements in policy. So we use that to build capacities of youth, but also we realize young people, the conversation is shifting from we want to sit at the table to we want to contribute. We do not only want to sit and look at you do things, we want to be part, first of all, of the resource mobilization. We understand all these, even capacity building needs resources. Some youth cannot afford internet, for example, to be on social media. But if some of the partners support young people financially to access such platforms, and usually even if it's not a financial support, for example, an organization decides to host youth meetings that can bring together youth, such sessions, that would be very important. So social media is one tool that we are using, but utilizing it needs young people to be aware on how to use it and benefit from it. Even utilizing AI, for example, to develop fundable proposals. This would be a very important instrumental aspect to help them raise resources for their projects, but they need to know how to use it and to be able to access the best available platforms they can use. So yes, yeah.
So as we wind up, I want to ask a question about funding, because funding is always a challenge, regardless of the group that you guys represent. So I'd like each one of us to just give us a bit of, so what are the challenges when it comes to funding, and how do you sort of find ways to overcome that challenge? So very briefly, quickly, as we wind up. Yes.
If I may start.
Yes.
As the CBD Women's Caucus, when it comes to issues of funding, like I said, we usually do conduct capacity building. So when it comes to issue of funding, we usually identify the needs that we have. We're not just gonna approach anyone to say we need fund for something that we do not understand ourselves. We usually come with very strong proposals. We share amongst our women to say, I'm proposing this. Could so and so assist me, like to make my proposal as sound as possible, and then we do as the women share the information amongst ourselves, because you might come across information about funding, but it's not relevant to you and might be relevant to me. So as women, we create, share the information. If the information is relevant to you, Ma'am Lucy, I will share that information to you. And if you need assistance to create that proposal and make it sound, then one of the women will come through to you to assist with that. But also, again, as individuals in our own communities, we also do fundraising initiatives. We do have our own projects. As women, we know we are very powerful. We have different strategies, different projects that we do for fundraising. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So, yes, thank you. Irene?
Yeah, I will also try to be as brief as possible. First of all, we co-implement with already established organizations. And also, young people write fundable proposals. For example, these can be joint or individual depending on what donor priorities are. But also, we've had an issue of where funds are available, but they are selective. For example, Africa has Francophone, Anglophone, and those Lusophone. A funder will come and say, I'm only funding Francophone countries. How about the rest of the countries that are also implementing and doing some, important stuff? So that financial constraint also, when it comes in, we want to ensure that we mobilize resources that can also be utilized in such cases. If Francophone is being funded, we also try to build a donor or funding mechanism to ensure that we also support other projects that are not. The other one is we are working with our governments. Of course, usually they support, and in cases where they cannot, young people are also writing fundable proposals. We want to be part of the process. We've had projects that come, and when we say with our budget, they tell us you are not part of the people who wrote the proposal. For example, this time we want to be part of it. If you invite us or we invite you, because sometimes the restrictions are too hard. For example, they're asking you must have an annual budget of 250,000 USD, but this is just a youth network, or you must have 10 years of, of experience. All those are constraints that young people face. So we try to come together and also work with those already established organizations to co-implement actions or write proposals, design proposals together. That's how we are doing it.
Yes. Lucy?
Yes, I'll try and hope I can be brief. I think we also do a lot of fundraising among ourselves as Indigenous peoples in the region. And we also work as a network with a global forum, and our work, especially the coaches, we always on our toes trying to fundraise. The good thing is that we have some donors who are constantly giving us money, and they are also opening up to the other areas, simply because we look at our work is guided by the convention and the outcome and the decisions made by COP. That is one area where we also try. But sometimes, like especially where now the donor world has gone down with the funding, it's been a challenge. So we have to work extra hard. And we also have to ask to work extra hard within the region to make sure that the other people also try to fundraise. But on the other hand, in Africa itself, because we are talking about Africa, we have some donors who have been supporting Indigenous women especially, and we have the different Indigenous women also getting that funding. Also for travel, which we have, and we also for the projects, because they are different, and also that one of coordinating among ourselves. Like now, we are going to sit down to choose of who will come for Substar. Yeah. And I guess even them, they have to recommend. Yeah. So it's a question of working together. And sometimes if we know that there are some youth from the Indigenous communities who already have funding, then we prioritize on the other area. And everybody will have to understand. Yeah. But because she says, it's really something that we have collectively together. It's something that we have to diversify and work collectively. Yes. But the donor world is thinning up slowly by slowly. So that also gives us
Yeah.
As you might see, this act of funding That one is one. We have internal resources. We have business people. We have people in the country who should be supporting the indigenous people, but they would rather send their money out of the country, not within the country. So, which is a mindset that needs to be worked on until they can realize that they should. Looking at from Zimbabwe, we were talking to one funder who came to visit us, and we thought that they were supporting us alone. And when he was speaking in a meeting, when he was speaking to us in a meeting, he says, I have other 47 members there. So 47 of us going to one funder in one country already makes the funding go down. So it will never take us any far. It's the same for all funders there. We are new projects are mushroom. And my only request is that people, those with funds, should fund skills, not fund programs. So we are requesting that please fund skills that will help people make money, and then they can move on rather than support a program which you want to achieve.
True. So thank you very much. This was an interesting conversation. I wish we had more time, and I hope the guys will be watching, get to learn something from this conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you.